we go. This is the world's largest slingshot. Go. Come on, coach, be there. Let's go.
That would have seemed like the foolproof way to get the show to start on time. Apparently not so much. Actually, I think it's coming out later today. I think it'll be up later. No, it's a great show. I enjoyed it. It's awesome. I enjoyed it a lot. I watched it. Yeah, so I was out down in San Diego. I'm going to have to catch up with the reruns, I guess. What's down in San Diego? I was doing some nerdy convention. Really? Not important. We don't need to focus on it. It was very nerdy. But this coming Friday, Jung Huger will be back then as well, and we're going to have an awesome first hour then. And I think he is here all the following weekend. So if you've been pining for some Cenk Uygur, he will be back soon this Friday for the main show. While I'll be in Seattle telling jokes at Laughs in Kirkland, so come out and see Jimmy Dortel do my headline set. See you there this weekend, Seattle. That should be awesome. Very serious news. We're going to be starting off with the first couple of stories. Very, very serious. We will eventually be getting to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, as we always do, joking about the jokes. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, Fox and Friends finds a way to make a historic event happening in Miami, all about fear and suspicion of Muslims. That should be fun. And we have George W. Bush lobbing some bombs at Barack Obama over his foreign policy, an area where George W. Bush is unable to be criticized. So what are we going to do, Jimmy? Like, how do you attack George W. Bush on foreign policy? We'll have to find out something to do. I don't know. We'll come up with something. But anyway, why don't we start off with the big headline news coming out of the weekend? Over the weekend, a devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal and the surrounding countries, and currently the death toll is at over 4,000, with an additional more than 7,000 injuries. Now, most of those fatalities are within Nepal, in the cities of Kathmandu and other Nepali cities. We're going to get into some of the reasons why the death toll was so high in those cities. Now, there were additional deaths and injuries in India, Bangladesh, Tibet, and along the Nepal-China border as well. And in addition, on Mount Everest alone, more than 18 people and 61 were injured from avalanches that were triggered from the earthquake. Now, there is an international response to the earthquake going on, coming out of the weekend and into this week, with many organizations and individuals doing what they can to lend aid, but complicating the relief efforts are the fact that that was not just one earthquake. More earthquakes and aftershocks continue to go on up until Monday. We have an administrator from Kathmandu who said there have been nearly 100 earthquakes and aftershocks, which is making rescue work difficult. And many of those in the area doing the relief efforts are worried that there could be another significant earthquake rising up to perhaps the level of the one on Saturday. Now, additionally, we know that tragically, many seismologists had been in Kathmandu just a couple of weeks ago to warn them about the possibility of an earthquake of this sort, of this magnitude. And unfortunately, there was no time to put into effect their recommendations coming out of that. But just a week ago, about 50 earthquake and social scientists from around the world came to Kathmandu to figure out how to get the poor, congested, overdeveloped, shoddily built area to prepare better for the big one. A repeat of the 1934 trembler that leveled the city. They knew they were racing the clock, but they didn't know when what they feared would actually strike. Now, we have some more information about both how, in the future, perhaps some of these deaths might be averted with different building regulations and things of that sort, and some historical information about other terrible earthquakes in both that area and around the globe. But obviously, this is pretty tragic. It seems like we can't go, more than a few months without some terrible natural disaster striking at some point around the globe. And so there's a constant basic need for vigilance in terms of relief efforts. So they're talking about it's a horrible tragedy, John. Here's what I'm not a seismologist or anything with the ologist at the end, and nor am I. But I'm looking at the deadliest earthquake since 1970. This isn't even coming close. Yet it's such. Yeah. Well, why don't we bring up that chart actually to show you what he's talking about there? 10 deadliest earthquakes since 1970. Now, currently, yes, the number of deaths is far lower. But we do know that there's a chance that more and more fatalities will be reported in Nepal and the surrounding countries. There's something like a 50% chance that the deaths will rise above 10,000. But yes, there have been far more deadly earthquakes, of course. Even recently, I mean, Haiti, that's absolutely devastating, and that was just a few years ago. Yes, so in Haiti, I
I didn't realize how many people had died in Haiti. Did you realize
I did not know that it was anywhere near.
250,000 people?
No, I did not.
I didn't either. I thought it was like a regular
that's the bubble that I guess we live in, even in the media in
even
America.
with all that coverage, I guess that number never penetrated.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure I was on the air talking about it too, and that number...
Yeah. Well, the problem really, I think, is that there will be a certain amount of attention paid to it, and then eventually people will move on. Both the media and the audience for the media will move on to other issues, and in many of these countries, especially the third world countries, you might not know for weeks or even months the total extent of the death toll, because communication is so shoddy in some areas. The ability to report, the ability to track is just not up to the standards of America or other first world countries, nor are the amount of money that they have to deal with these natural disasters or to ward them off. I mean, so we're going to talk a little bit about building regulations and the ability to put so much money into building regulations and how you build them that they can withstand it. But here is just a mind-blowing fact here. So according to the U.S. Geological Survey, a seismologist estimated that the same level of severe shaking would lead to 10 to 30 deaths per million residents in California, but kill 1,000 or more in Nepal and up to 10,000 in parts of Pakistan, India, Iran, and China. And they were basically talking about first responders, but especially the standard that the buildings are built to. That in California, because we expect that we're going to have earthquakes, they're built to withstand that. But in Nepal, even though they've had tragic earthquakes in the past, they simply don't have the money to do that or to enforce those regulations. And so when the big earthquakes come, thousands more people die than would otherwise need to. It's a difficult situation because you need to protect against this in many different countries. I mean, we showed you right there that there are other countries in the region that are far worse off than Nepal specifically, but how do you safeguard populations rising to the hundreds of millions or over 1 billion in India alone? I don't know how you deal with that situation.
Well, that was, when you talk about the irony or the ironic timing of the 50 earthquake scientists who went to Kathmandu to try to figure out what to do about this just last Saturday, and they were overwhelmed by the scope of what they didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
And where do you start to try to get this place ready for an earthquake?
How do you renovate tens of thousands of buildings, potentially?
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that. You do that over decades is how you do it.
I guess you do it slowly. You start small, and then maybe in 30 years you're somewhere close to being ready. Unfortunately, they weren't ever ready for this. Mm-hmm. But this is, part of it. We have building regulations in America for earthquake standards in California, and that really hurts business.
That's what they would say. Yeah, it's actually sort of one of the outcomes of these natural disasters. Is it does, if you take time to think about it, it reinforces that yes, these government regulations they're actually a matter of life and death in many situations. I mean, we sort of know that on some level when it comes to food and water standards and things like that. But especially when it comes to earthquakes, the ability to withstand hurricanes, tornadoes, like the building standards are incredibly important, and they can turn it from a situation of a few people dying, or on the other hand, thousands. And that can happen in America as well. So people hate the regulations, but they can actually save lives. And another situation coming out of this, obviously, as we've said, there's a significant chance that the death toll is going to rise, possibly even doubling or more in the next week as more information comes in. But we do know that in the short term, literally millions of children have been affected by this, and they're now at risk of undernourishment, not having access to water, not having access to medical care, and that's a situation that the international community is going to have to help out with in the short term as well. And coming into the rest of this year and next year, there could be long-term negative ramifications for Nepal because its economy is so dependent on tourism that if people are not traveling there because they don't feel that it's safe or they want to wait until the relief efforts are done, then over the next year you could have a significant economic impact on Nepal as well.
One other important fact is that they said there's going to be a labor shortage when they try to rebuild because millions of young men, mostly from the rural areas, left India for other jobs in other parts of the world, right? Mm-hmm. And then they send money back. In fact, that's a big part of their economy. Is the money? There's a name for it. I can't think of what it is, but they take the money. That's common for a lot of poor people to go to another country and then send money back. But that India really relies on that money, and so they say there's going to be a worker shortage when they go to rebuild because they don't have enough labor. That'll be an interesting development.
It's a difficult situation. We do have one of the immediate outcomes of this, one of the tragic situations that pops up in these sorts of disasters that we're going to talk about, and this is absolutely horrible. Can we switch over here? Okay. While numerous organizations and individuals are doing what they can, both in Nepal and around the world, to deal with the Nepali earthquake relief effort, there are others who are looking to cash in on the situation or to push their agenda. And despite the fact that they are still reeling from this tragedy, some evangelical Christians on Twitter are attempting to use this as an opportunity to push Jesus on a country that's still reeling from disaster. We're going to show you some of these tweets of people looking to use the situation. One said 1,400 souls dead in Nepal. This is obviously early on. And climbing. I wonder how many of those have heard the gospel. Hashtag prayers for Nepal. Hashtag prayer for gospel movement. I'm glad that they were able to include prayers for Nepal in there.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
The Christianity. The next massive 7.8 earthquake strikes Nepal. More signs of the soon return of Jesus Christ. Okay, that's possibly one thing that we can take out of it. I would take out of it that we need to help out Nepal. Devastating Nepal earthquake could have been prayed down by acknowledging that Christ is the ruler of God's creation. They're apparently either blaming Christians around the world or perhaps blaming people in Nepal for not being of the correct religion, possibly, and that led to the earthquake, according to that individual. Another, I learned in Nepal Christianity is 1.3%, Islam is 30%, the rest are Hindus. A life without Christ is full of crises.
Yeah, because when you have a life full of Christ, no crises.
No crises, no tornadoes, no hurricanes.
No child rape.
No Katrina,
nothing. Nothing happens. So if you have Christ, that's the message there.
Yeah. And then we have...
And go ahead.
No.
Just these things about, like that. If you have life without Christ is full of crises, what kind of a God would you... What kind of a God says, "Hi, you don't believe in me? I'm going to fucking crush you and your children under mortar." It's kind of a prick, I would think.
I would think so. But look, when people say that you should have, that you should be God-fearing, we take that as just an old-timey expression, but some people mean it quite literally.
Yeah, it's a perverse look at what love is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that I need to be dominated, I need to have a paternalistic father who tells me what to do, and I don't have my own will. And that someone sent me a thing one time that conservatives see morality as your amount of obedience to authority. They see obedience to authority as your expression of morality.
Yeah, you need a strong father figure that tells you what you do, and you follow those rules.
Right. So it never dawns on to me. It would dawn on me like, wait a minute, if my God is such a good God and love, why is he fucking killing these people? Why wouldn't you go out and be nicer to people who don't believe in you? So then they would maybe, use maybe more of a carrot instead of a stick.
Yeah.
That God's all stick, that motherfucker.
Yeah, he likes the stick. Okay. The final tweet, prayers for Nepal. Earthquakes and death are proof that we live in a fallen world that awaits its restoration by Jesus when he returns.
So these
that's not what it's proof of, man. and if you honestly believe that, that's incredibly fatalistic. Like, well, the world's filled up with death and disaster. Why should we do anything to stop it? And in fact, I believe that Jesus is going to be back in 6 months. So don't worry about the building standards. Don't worry about the relief efforts. We're all going to be whisked away into the air when the rapture comes. But we're probably not. Maybe, but probably not. And so maybe we should do something so that the next terrible earthquake that strikes Nepal or any other country, we're ready for it, and fewer people need to suffer as a result of it.
Well, it's nice to see that they didn't let, can't let a disaster go without trying to sell whatever you're selling.
Exactly.
That was nice.
Even if it's a philosophy.
I saw a tweet by Dodge Car Company. They said, hey, you see that avalanche on the Himalayas? Maybe a Dodge 4x4 would help those people get out. So I guess, not only Christians are using this to sell Dodge,
but Dodge specifically. Yeah, that was an odd move for them. I don't know how that's going to play out.
I don't know if they even sell their 4x4s in India. I don't know. But maybe they're trying
rugged terrain.
Tough to get penetration in that market.
Yeah, maybe.
This is just the thing they needed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how 9/11 got us into Iraq. Right, this is going to get the Dodge 4x4.
Are you asserting that Dodge in some way caused this? A false flag?
You know what? I'd have to take Dodge on face value. I have to take him at their word until I have
until you have proof.
Yeah, just like Chris Christie. I have to take him at his word.
Yeah, until you hear reports that there were Dodge engineers in Kathmandu.
Yes, fracking.
Yeah. Now, of course, we do have to recognize that as this relief effort is going on, obviously, as always, secular and religious organizations, as I said in the very beginning, are doing what they can to help out. And I have no doubt that there are going to be Christian organizations that are going there to help out in person as well as sending money. We're not attacking all Christians in this way, but there are some both Christian and probably secular, we could probably find them, who are going to use it to push their agenda, and those people need to be shouted down because it's absolutely horrific. Now, let's jump to a totally different subject. Family and friends of Freddie Gray are going to be gathering today for his funeral. Now, Freddie Gray, of course, is the man who just 2 weeks ago was assaulted by police, arrested, and died a week later from the horrific spinal injuries that he suffered during that arrest. And over the weekend, protests broke out in advance of his funeral from people who were angry with the police, angry with the investigation. It drew the eye of both the country and the White House. The White House sending a delegation of officials to show their solidarity with the family and with the protesters, sending them to the funeral. The delegation includes Cabinet Secretary Broderick Johnson, chair of the Obama administration's My Brother's Keeper Task Force, Heather Foster, an advisor in the White House Office of Public Engagement, and Elias Alcantara from the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Now, of course, the investigation into exactly what happened during the arrest of Freddie Gray is still ongoing. We don't know if there is going to be what we would consider justice coming out of this. But in case you didn't see the original footage showing some of the assault and the aftermath, with people calling out that he is clearly injured and he needs to be dealt with more carefully, let's roll that footage of the initial arrest.
Right. Hey, his leg look broke. Look at his leg. Look at his leg. That boy's leg look broke. His leg broke and y'all dragging him like that.
So you see there, he's literally being dragged. He doesn't seem to have any control over them whatsoever. The police, I don't know if they had just had enough and they weren't going to be respectful in terms of how they transport him. It's clear that he's been injured in some significant fashion. People, all onlookers can tell that. We did find out eventually that his spine had been severed through more than 80% of the way. And it's believed that combined with damage to his throat, was what ultimately led to his death.
So, there's a lot of problems, with that. Obviously, they roughed him up before they put him in, and that's what I thought when I hadn't seen this particular one where you could hear him screaming. So, but it definitely looked like, he already had some kind of a spinal injury, something's happening. But here's another thing that you don't hear enough about, is that what cops would do, by the way, he was then put in the back and they didn't seatbelt him in.
Yeah.
And so,
which, if he had any sort of spinal injury at that point, I would imagine that any sort of driving would only exacerbate it.
Yeah, in fact, what cops would do, I don't know how often, but they've been documented that they would do this, they would put people who they arrested in the back of the van and then drive around like maniacs, so they would bounce around inside. They would do that on purpose.
As like a punishment.
To hurt them. And so they got caught doing this. One guy, they had to pay out $39 million because they paralyzed him doing that. Now, other guy, they had to pay, right here, $7.4 million because they heard another guy doing that. So then they got this guy, he already can't walk, they put him in the back of that thing, and they don't seatbelt him in.
Yeah.
And then they pull him out, and he's paralyzed. Oh, no kidding? No kidding. And the cops said that would have been dangerous because it was too narrow of an opening for the officer to go back. Again, first of all, it's bullshit. Second of all, officer safety is always paramount. I thought that when you became a policeman, the reason why we give you respect and admiration is because you're willing to sacrifice your safety for your community. But that's not what they do. Every one of these situations, it's always this officer safety is paramount. I thought he was coming at me with a screwdriver. I feared for my life, so I shot him dead.
Yeah.
So that's, again, he didn't handcuff. He didn't seatbelt him into the back of the paddy wagon because it would have been unsafe for the officer to get through a narrow opening to go with it. So all this stuff about it's always the officer's safety is paramount, which that's bullshit. The officer is supposed to sacrifice his safety for the community, and that is not what's happening ever.
Yeah, and look, even I'm sure we would be pretty deferential to, like, if a suspect has a gun and they're pointing at the cops, and the cops shoot them, we let you kill people. We let you stun people. We let you use other non-lethal forms of weapons. And if someone's fighting back, we let you beat the crap out of them in those cases. We just ask that when they're not fighting back whatsoever, and when they seem to have lost the ability to move most of their body, you're willing to do something to ensure that they don't suffer far worse injuries while you're transporting them to be arrested. Like, we will defer, just not 100%. We're not asking for you to go up against a team of ISIS snipers, but you will be put at some risk if you're a police officer.
Yes.
That's the difference between a police officer and a regular person. If you don't take any risk, then I'm a cop. Yeah, and I demand the same respect that they deserve.
Well,
because I walk down the street, and if that's the only risk they're taking, then there's not really any big difference.
And yes, but it's pretty. If you remember in the Tulsa case with the insurance salesman who they let become a cop because he gave the money to the sheriff, in that case, after he shoots him, they tackle the guy. No need to stun him or do anything. They already got him on the ground. He shoots him with his gun.
Thinking he's tasing him, he shoots him.
The guy says, "I can't breathe." The other cop says, "Fuck your breath," as he's kneeling with all the pressure he can give on the guy's head. So the guy's head is on concrete. He's got a bullet in him. The other cop kneels on top of his head with all his might as he's already shot, and he knows he's shot. And the guy's unarmed. So you don't think those cops put all the pressure in the world on Gray's spine when they were trying to cuff him? Of course they did. They knelt on him as hard as they could with all their weight and all their might. And yes, they cracked his spine.
Yeah. Now, back to the protests, because obviously the media is going to spin it as, a violent mob of angry people. And there was some violence. There was some looting. There was some destruction of property, including cop cars. But when you have a protest of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, it's going to attract some extremists, obviously. So they say that some police officers had been scuffed up in minor skirmishes with the protesters. Considering what's going on around the country, I think that level of violence, that level of protest is probably to be expected at this point. Yeah, you're seeing there the property damage.
So my point is, where are the cops? So why aren't there
probably
cops?
Worried about?
So the cops are somewhere else. So
no, you do see riot police there.
It's almost like they wait for it to become a riot. They let it, and then okay.
I believe that man there in the footage is talking about not expecting any justice. I would have gone with a different T-shirt because that has connotations of extreme violence, and he was actually being totally non-violent. But we also know that amongst all of this, a couple of journalists were roughed up by police. So we have a photo editor who said, "They just swarmed over me," referring to the cops. "I got hit, my head hit the ground, they were hitting me, then someone pulled me out." And another print journalist was also assaulted by police during those protests.
So that's okay.
That's okay.
So when cops indiscriminately assault people, reporters, that's okay. Nobody gets upset about it. Mm-hmm. No one's upset. Those cops aren't under investigation. It's not going to be the lead story. What is going to be the lead story is there were protesters who threw stuff at cops. Yeah. But the other way, so how is that okay? These are supposed to be trained professionals in a volatile situation. So whenever we have a volatile situation, cops are going to go fucking crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how.
You remember the footage out of Ferguson with the cops screaming in people's faces as they pointed assault rifles at them. People weren't doing anything.
Yes.
And you just put them in that situation, and they think that they're in the streets of Baghdad.
Yeah.
They think that.
Not into shadow puppets? Me either. This is the video that you're watching before the video that you really want to watch. I'm Grace Helbig. Glad we had this time together.
And also take part in it in your free time.
You know, yes. Well, you know, and it's. I wasn't born this way. I had to work at it. You know, I got 2 adult children of alcoholics as my parents who have ragers themselves. And then I had 6 older brothers who beat the shit out of me every day. So it was that. I got a lot of it. Yeah.
6 old. You were the youngest out of 7.
Yeah.
That is a rough place to be. I was in the middle of 3, and so we would team up and beat up the other one.
Oh.
So I was only the target 1/3 of the time, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get back into the news.
You're the Peter Brady. You're the middle.
It was he in the middle?
Yeah, Bobby was the youngest, and then it was Greg was the oldest. He was the big man on campus, Johnny Bravo. I know.
Let's talk about who crafts the jackets for game show hosts. We'll call back to Michael Short's show. Anyway, if you're a political nerd, then Saturday was one of the biggest nights of the year for you. The White House Correspondents' Dinner, where politicians and members of the media gather to reinforce their own bubble and make jokes about the serious issues that shape the lives of hundreds of millions of Americans. But with that said, there were some good lines this year. Let's jump to some of Barack Obama's greatest hits.
Welcome to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the night when Washington celebrates itself. And welcome to the 4th quarter of my presidency. That was Michelle cheering. Being president is never easy. I still have to fix a broken immigration system, issue veto threats, negotiate with Iran, all while finding time to pray 5 times a day. Just this week, Michelle Bachmann actually predicted that I would bring about the biblical end of days. Now that's a legacy. I'm happy to report that the Secret Service, thanks to some excellent reporting by White House correspondents, they're really focusing on some of the issues that have come up, and they finally figured out a foolproof way to keep people off my lawn. As we all know, Hillary's private emails got her in trouble. Frankly, I thought it was going to be her private Instagram account that was going to cause her bigger problems.
She's in college.
She's drawing dicks on people's faces when they fall asleep.
That's unlikely, because she wouldn't normally do that. I get the juxtaposition. He did a good job. I thought he delivered the lines pretty well. Someone put together a montage of, he makes the joke that he's a secret Muslim every single year.
Oh, yeah.
But in his defense, they call him a secret Muslim every single year.
They're
so
still
it's always
doing it.
topical, I guess.
Yes, he's certainly anti-colonial.
Yeah, he is. So, you're a comedian. How do you grade him?
I've always said Barack Obama gets an A+, and I don't envy the comedian who has to follow him because he nails it. I mean, he nails it. I mean, he is probably our best orator as a president that we've ever seen. People say Ronald Reagan was a great communicator.
I don't
but he was just an empty vessel. But, you know, you could stab Ronald Reagan with an ice pick when he was reading his speeches and he wouldn't feel it. He was not there.
No emotion.
But Barack Obama is a great orator, and he really knows how. It's not the joke, it's the timing.
Yeah,
and he really nails the timing on everything, and he straight faces stuff. So that's a lot of problem when people tell jokes who aren't comedians. They'll laugh through it.
That's not like. Look, I think you should be able to joke about anything, and I don't like generally when people shut down comedians, regardless of the topic, because there are funny jokes to be told. about anything but the weapons of mass destruction. Like, dude, that was you. If Louis C.K. wants to make a joke about that, I'll allow it. Jimmy Dore wants to joke about it, I'll allow it.
There you go.
You went to war over the weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, but anyway, if I invaded a wrong country and lied my country into it for to profit my oil buddies, I wouldn't. It would be in bad taste for me to then make jokes about it.
And you did that with Syria, but you don't joke about Syria.
I don't make jokes about Syria.
Clean slate. Exactly.
Thank you, John.
Yes. Now, there was one joke that got a lot of coverage. It was his bucket list joke. Let's take a look at that.
After the midterm elections, my advisors asked me, Mr. President, do you have a bucket list? And I said, well, I have something that rhymes with bucket list. Take executive action on immigration? Bucket. New climate regulations? Bucket. Right thing to do.
Okay, that's not bad. Timing.
I don't agree with that kind of humor, John.
No.
And he's the president.
Yeah.
I actually do think that's weird that he's doing that. He's basically doing a joke about bucket, and he's the president. That's weird that you're doing that.
Yeah. I think that like every president takes executive actions. I think that just because he happens to be a Democrat, that's why they're attacking him. Is you can't do any of this. So I like that he's sort of making a joke about the double standards in terms of what's okay for a president to accomplish.
Yes. And of course, the substance of the joke.
The substance was good. Yes. Let's jump ahead to Graphic 9 because there's a few more jokes that we don't have video, unfortunately, but I like them. I liked Graphic 9. He says, "Today, thanks to Obamacare, you no longer have to worry about losing your insurance if you lose your job. You're welcome, Senate Democrats." And so they're going to appreciate that in upcoming elections.
Nice.
Speaking about his relationship with his Vice President Biden, he says, "I love that man. We've gotten so close that some places in Indiana won't serve us pizza." That's pretty good.
These are good jokes.
And he also says, talking about the stress on the body of being president, he says, "I look so old. House Speaker John Boehner's already invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to speak at my funeral." So that's not bad. But anyway, good job from Obama there. I think that he comported himself pretty well.
Is there controversy over his performance?
There is, yeah. We're getting into that. There is, actually. Let's jump to that. So, one thing that President Obama was joking about is he brought out an anger translator so that he could speak in the normal, level-headed way that he does, and then Key and Peele from Comedy Central would translate what he actually meant. And there is actually controversy over this, with some people online saying that this is him revealing how angry and arrogant he actually is on the inside every single day. This is from Byron York and John Hinraker saying, "Now in his second term, Obama is finally free to air his resentments. This year's event was perhaps notable because it exposed our president's bitterness as he approached the end of his term. Humor is often revealing." So we're going to show you a couple sections of this anger translator here, and you be the judge. Is he actually revealing how arrogant he is, or are these conservative commenters up their own ass? So here is the first.
I invited Luther, my anger translator, to join me here tonight. Because despite our differences, we count on the press to shed light on the most important issues of the day.
And we can count on Fox News to terrify old white people with some nonsense. Sharia law is coming to Cleveland, run for the damn hills. That was ridiculous.
We won't always see eye to eye.
Oh, and CNN, thank you so much for the wall-to-wall Ebola coverage. For 2 whole weeks, we were one step away from the Walking Dead. And then y'all got up and just moved on to the next day. That was awesome. Oh, and by the way, just if you didn't notice, you don't have Ebola.
But I still deeply appreciate the work that you do.
Well, I love that we bring up constantly Ebola. Like, has a president ever gotten... I mean, granted, look, he only deserves a very small portion of the acclaim, I guess, for the fact that nobody here has Ebola, nobody got it in America and then died from it. CDC, the scientists, the local first responders, they deserve most of the credit. But if Bush had been in office and nobody had died from Ebola, they definitely would have heaped praise.
Oh, big credit for him doing the things you're supposed to. And he would have put a no-fly in from the Western Africa. Nobody can fly in. That was what saved us from Ebola.
Probably.
They would say stuff like that.
They would definitely. So no credit for that. He moves on in this next clip. He's going to talk about one of our favorite topics, money and politics.
Protecting our democracy is more important than ever. For example, the Supreme Court ruled that the donor who gave Ted Cruz $6 million was just exercising free speech.
Yeah, it's the kind of speech like this. I just wasted $6 million.
And it's not just Republicans. Hillary will have to raise huge sums of money too.
Oh, yeah. She gonna get that money. She gonna get all the money. Khaleesi is coming to Westeros.
I don't get that last joke.
It's Game of Thrones thing.
I don't watch that show.
She's gonna conquer. Yeah.
That's a funny sketch.
That's pretty good.
Man, that is top notch.
Do you watch Canfield?
No.
Actually, I actually don't.
I don't watch anything.
Amazing though.
I'll watch it now after seeing him how funny he is.
Yeah, pretty good.
I really want to be on this fucking
correspondence dinner.
Really,
if you hosted it, do you think that you would make it until the end before you were kicked off?
No.
No, you'd be kicked off faster than Stephen Colbert.
Yes.
No second.
Well, I don't think he got kicked off, but they would definitely would be one.
Well, they wouldn't let him come back, and that was one of the best. That was one of the best White House correspondents.
He was fantastic. And I don't know if I could be as funny as Stephen Colbert, but I definitely would try to be as truthful as he was.
Yeah. Okay. We have one more on climate change. Let's watch.
Every serious scientist says we need to act. The Pentagon says it's a national security risk. Miami floods on a sunny day, and instead of doing anything about it, we've got elected officials throwing snowballs in the Senate.
Okay, I think I got it, bro.
It is crazy. What about our kids? What kind of stupid, short-sighted, irresponsible bull?
Whoa! Hey! Okay, all due respect, sir, you don't need an anger translator. You need counseling.
So, obviously that's great. The thing that depresses me slightly is the reason that we pay so much attention to it, the reason that so many people around the country watch it and love watching these clips and they share them online and everything for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, is they so desperately want the politicians to be real. And the only time they feel comfortable being real is at this one comedy event. But why can't he speak as frankly as he did there? I mean, he apparently agrees with these ideas, at least in principle. If he actually believes it, why not speak to the people as an actual person? John posted through 10 different filters of PR and admin and all that.
John, you got me. I always, every time a person who's not a politician gets into politics, that's what they say they like about him. Is that they don't speak like a politician. He speaks like a regular person, and then as soon as they get going, they start to speak like a politician.
It doesn't last long, yeah.
No, I don't know what negative effects would come from Barack Obama speaking. We've said that for, a lot of his own Democrats just make the point that he's never fought hard for anything except this fucking trade deal, right? So, if he would fight that hard for the minimum wage or for unions or that would be great. Or for Medicare for all. Let's see him fight for that stuff like he's fighting for this. I don't know how I got off on this subject.
I don't know. Yeah, and look, the thing is, we know that if he really wants to push for an issue like TPP, but also, very early on, the student loans or Obamacare, the CAF standards, there are some things that he occasionally, wakes up and he steps off the liberal side of his bed, I guess.
Yeah.
And he'll do it. So when he doesn't do it, it's all the more depressing. But anyway, good performance there at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I think we have one more coming out of him next year.
But I think he's got one more left. But that guy that criticized him, what was his name? Byron York from...
I think he's at Byron York.
But
I lost the paper. But anyway, conservative commentator.
So he's saying, look...
But there are articles all over the place about that this is showing how truly arrogant he is. And the thing is, I know that we've been going on this. So he very early on decided that he can never be angry because they will attack him as an angry black man. They so desperately want to do that.
Yeah.
It's taken years, but finally he makes a joke about it. So the whole time. Angry black man. The whole time.
He's doing a comedy sketch about him not actually being... about having to keep it in all these years.
The joke is he is actually angry, and it seems so ridiculous that it's funny.
Yes!
But they've been waiting for it the whole time.
That's but if he didn't do that sketch, they would have said, see, he's afraid to do an angry Barack Obama sketch because people will know how angry he is.
Angry he is. Yeah.
That's how fucking crazy.
Or they attack him in two ways. They attack him as the angry black man. They also attack him as the logical, like the Spock, the robot.
Yeah.
That he doesn't have human warmth and all that. At the same time, he's a boiling cauldron of rage, and he has no emotions whatsoever. Anyway, we're going to take our second and last break. When we come back, George W. Bush has some criticism of Barack Obama's foreign policy, and that ought to be fun. Tweet us at #TYT Live. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, everybody. First hour of the Young Turks. Jimmy Dore, Johnny Rolla. When we come back from our other break, we're gonna have one more story for you. I think in this first hour, Anna Kasparian and Karamo will be coming to lead you through the second hour. They've got some gigantic, awesome, hilarious stories for you. There's some overlap there. Some of them are gigantic, some of them are hilarious. But anyway, I want to read some of the TYT lives for you from No More Donations. We've got President Barack Obama is a great comedian. I only wish he would have been a great progressive. Yes, perhaps someday we'll have both in one person. TYT.
If I get elected, Johnny, it
could happen. Could happen. Mordor in the White House, I guess. TYT Ubiquitous says, bucket list jokes would be okay if he hadn't been so pliant throughout his term. Bucket, I'll let BP control U.S. disaster policy. That's pretty true, too. And then Jeff Waldorf says, to be fair, if someone blocked everything I did and then called me a Kenyan Muslim, I'd be a little resentful, too. I would be as well. But I get all sorts of different insults online. I'm sure someone has called me a Kenyan Muslim. And then I do also want to thank two of our members. Member number 1645, Amanda Schroeder. Member number 2261, Richard Worthington. Thank you for supporting us. Our members are awesome, and it reminds me, we haven't had a big meetup in LA in months, it feels like. When was the last time we had a big meetup with a bunch of people going to it? We need to do that. We need to work on that. Perhaps in the summer.
Last time I remember was when we went to the premiere of Mad as Hell.
That was awesome. We need to tell him to make more documentaries about us.
Definitely.
Anytime he does that, we will do premieres.
Make a documentary and actually put me and Johnny in it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we could be in the sequel.
Yes, I'd love to.
The B Team Strikes Back. It'd be awesome.
I think it would be called Mad as Fuck.
Mad as Fuck. We get more real in the second one.
That's right.
People expect you to raise the bar. Yeah. Too Mad, Too Furious. That's going to be the next one. Anyway, a last news story for the first hour. Although George W. Bush rarely criticizes President Obama ever since he left the presidency, on Saturday, in a closed-door fundraising event, he showed a rare willingness to slam the president, assuming that there is relative privacy. But there were leaks, and we know some of the attacks that he launched against Obama's foreign policy. Bloomberg's Josh Rogan reported that Bush said Obama had caused the U.S. to retreat around the world, and that Obama had charted the wrong course in his nuclear negotiations with Iran. He also said Obama was misreading Iran's intentions while relaxing sanctions on Tehran too easily. They have not actually relaxed the sanctions. I don't know what he's talking about there. Bush said that Obama's plan to lift sanctions on Iran with a promise that they could snap back into place at any time was not plausible. I don't understand why it's not plausible. He also said that the deal would be bad for American national security in the long term. He said, "You think the Middle East is chaotic now? Imagine what it looks like for our grandchildren. That's how Americans view the deal." I do imagine it's going to be pretty bad for our grandchildren. I'm not sure what percentage of that is Barack Obama's fault. And to hear Bush say that, as if he had just been like working at a Dairy Queen over the past decade and a half, that he wasn't involved in it. Maybe we always say that Cheney had the reins of power. Maybe Bush didn't even know all that stuff that was going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, again,
playing with his Xbox.
taking advice from George Bush on foreign policy is like, you're going to take captain lessons from the Titanic's captain. I mean, it's like you're the worst guy in the world, obviously. And, George Bush just can't understand why Barack Obama would make peace with the right country when he could make war with the wrong one.
Mm-hmm. I love that little frame there. That is a classic there. Turn that into a meme, people. A little bit more out of Bush. Several attendees sensed a tacit critique of Mr. Obama and his failure to follow through on his threats to use force. When Mr. Bush said, "You gotta mean it when talking tough," and that America's allies and enemies needed to know where an American leader stood. What the fuck does that even mean? His failure to follow through on the threat of force? What countries have we not bombed during Barack Obama's presidency? We're bombing countries right now, literally spending billions of dollars launching airstrikes against Syria, bombing people in Yemen and Oman from time to time, Pakistan, Iraq, we're fighting ISIS there. We just resent thousands of troops there. Formerly, we've been deployed throughout North Africa and other parts of Africa. What the fuck have we not bombed during this time?
So you're saying no matter what the amount of bombing, no matter how muscular a Democrat's foreign policy is, they're still going to attack them for not being weak on defense?
That's what it is.
You're kidding.
No
matter what Barack Obama does, they're always going to say the Democrats weak on defense and spend more money, even though the deficit has been reduced faster than any presidency. So no matter what, facts, they just keep saying that.
Yes.
But the thing that pisses me off about it, John, is that the Democrats then react to it. So Barack Obama goes out of his way to look muscular on foreign policy. So does Hillary Clinton, to the point where they are war hawks.
Yes.
Let's remember, this latest round of bombing in Syria and Iraq is being brought to us by Nobel Peace Prize winner Barack Obama for people who enjoy irony with their bombing.
Exactly. They want the combo.
Yes.
Yes. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so they do, and then get damned anyway, while making the situation worse in many countries.
I would want Barack Obama. We just did a segment about he did an anger thing at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He had his anger, his alter ego. Came out, was angry for him. I would like to be behind Barack Obama screaming at him. Yes. No, single payer, you dumb fuck! What are you doing? They're gonna hate you anyway! Quit trying to work with them!
That would work. Yeah, I would pay for that.
They hate you no matter what you do! Stop it!
Probably not going to happen, unfortunately, but he could use it. And so, to hear Bush saying all this bullshit, I mean, and look really fast. Historically, Bush has said, I don't think it's good for the country to have a former president undermine a current president. I think it's bad for the presidency, for that matter. So he's not doing that. But I think he's wrong there. If you're the former president, you should still care enough about the presidency to be willing to criticize the president after you leave office. I understand there's some decorum and tradition and all that, but no, you should be willing to criticize him, but not in a ridiculous sense that makes you look like a jackass because of what you did to this country in sending us to war. I mean, granted, look, I know that Barack Obama hasn't sent as many troops abroad. He hasn't spent as many billions or past $1 trillion on war. But I'm pretty sure he's actually gotten us involved in wars in more countries at the very least. They both, there's a lot of criticism you can levy against both of them, but Bush is not the person to do it. I don't know that we're ever going to have in our lifetime a president who fucks up foreign policy more, not just in the short term, not just in terms of thousands of American lives lost, hundreds of thousands of foreigners' lives lost, not just in the more than $1 trillion spent on war, but then forcing us into a situation where the next 1, 2, 3, 4 presidents afterward need to spend their entire terms cleaning up that mess, the intractable mess that we can't get out of. The fact that they've ruined these countries, they've shattered these countries, and they're now broken for decades later on. Bush should lock himself in a room and spend time just eating and watching Netflix. That's what he's qualified to do there. He's not qualified to critique any other president's foreign policy. He lost that right when he sent thousands of American soldiers to die.
For a lie.
On a total lie.
A total lie. Yeah, like a normal human being would go in a bathtub and slit their wrists, right?
Yes.
That's what a normal people.
But they would simply be crushed by the horror of what they have visited upon the world.
But George Bush and Judith Miller keep going and saying, we got to do more. What's wrong with you? Why don't you guys want to keep bombing more? We have to bomb more. That shit that I started, we need to keep doing it. You know, that stuff, that the exact opposite of everything. The only thing that George Bush should, George Bush advising anybody on foreign policy. I mean, maybe if he advised Barack Obama on hurricane response, okay.
Then we can understand. He did a heck of a job there.
Pretzel eating, hurricane response,
bicycle riding,
and Segway riding. He did crash a Segway.
And African dance, and dealing with turkeys. Google all of those things.
Right.
Google all of them.
And I used to make fun of George Bush because they say the Segways, they're uncrashable. He crashed his.
He found a way.
Guess who else did?
Who?
I did.
You crashed a Segway.
In Washington, D.C. I was in Washington, D.C. on the set of Segway, taking a Segway tour around the, whatever they called everything there.
The Capitol?
Yeah.
The hill?
And there's enough. But, I took one foot off. Big mistake.
You don't do that.
Never take one foot off the Segway, because then it just starts spinning, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing that thing. I've been bushed. And I looked like a big idiot.
You did.
Yeah, I was in front of about 30 comedians were with me.
Really?
It was a big
doing a comedian tour of DC.
There was a comedy festival in DC that
sounds awesome. Yeah. So you found a way to be a laughing stock amongst laughing stocks.
I was more sympathetic. It was more sympathetic.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't.
You're like, oh. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for the first hour. We do have to adjourn. Thank you, Jimmy, for joining me. Jimmy's going to be here throughout the week, I believe.
I'm going to be back tomorrow for both hours.
Back for tomorrow. Okay. And then on Friday in Seattle, look that up. Get
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So if you're not going to watch the Pacquiao fight, come out and watch me bitch about not watching the Pacquiao fight.
Exactly. Or go there, get the ticket, watch it on your phone or something. But be there. You can absorb some of his
Friday,
comedy.
Saturday, Sunday. Come see me.
Continue to tweet us at #2ITLive. Anna Kasparian will read some of those when she comes back from this break. Karamo will be joining her, but we will be rejoining you after this break in just a few.
Exciting news, everybody. We're up for 2 Webbies. Kind of. We're not up for 2 Webbies. Young Turks is up for 1 Webby, and that is for News and Politics. We want to win the People's Voice Award, and you guys get to vote on that, and that's what has led to every Webby we've ever won, is when you guys vote for us. So we'd really appreciate that. Interesting little side note. Anna Kasparian kind of up for a Webby having nothing to do with the Young Turks. Oh, okay. So
one of the most surprising moments of my life. I did not see that coming.
So she's in the reality category because she did Sundance TV's Dream School. I also did that. Apparently, I was not good enough to qualify for a Webby, but Anna was. She's in a category with Bravo and CNN and something called 72 and Sunny, which I thought had something to do with Philadelphia, but apparently doesn't. Okay. We're up against Reuters TV, AJ Plus, and HuffPost Live. So we want you guys to vote if you can. The links are in the video below, of course, just to make it super simple.
I love when you go on the Huffington Post and you click on an interesting story and it's a video, it's a live conversation about it. It's great. It's my favorite thing.
I haven't said a word. I didn't say anything.
It's great. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. No, good. No, I'll watch. This is what I want to do. Because I can't make my own decision about whether I want to watch a video or not. I can't let other people make it for me.
I haven't said a word.
Okay.
So you guys can vote until April 24th, and all you have to do is click on, the little icon that has either me or the Young Turks, depending on which category you're in, and then you sign in using Facebook or Twitter or your personal email address. But remember, after you vote, you have to go back and verify your email. If you don't verify your email, then your vote doesn't count.
Where do you go to vote?
The link is actually in the description box, so you guys can check it out there.
And if you're not seeing it in that context, it's bit.ly/TYT-Webby and bit.ly/Anna Webby. Anna's one N, of course, ANA Webby. So thank you for doing that, guys. That's why we say we're too strong, because you guys always lead us to victory on these things, so we appreciate it. And if Anna wins, she'll be as unbearable as I usually am when I win less meaningful things like fantasy football championships.
Turks, Anna Kasparian, and Karamo Brown with you. As you guys can see, Jank is not here, but that's okay because we have replaced him for the moment being with this dapper gentleman here.
Thank you. Glad to be here again, always with you.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this hour. I'm super excited to be back. I've been gone for a little over a week.
We missed you.
Thank you. Actually, I was telling you during the break, my thoughts on a vacation is that you need to take it so you miss what you do, right? And so I'm fortunate enough to actually miss what I do, and I'm happy to be back. And there were a lot of things that happened while I was gone. You know, there are protests in Baltimore that they talked about in the first hour. Here in Los Angeles, I just want to give a shout out to the 130,000 people that took to the streets to raise awareness about the Armenian genocide. That takes a lot of courage, and Germany is the latest country to recognize the Armenian genocide as a genocide. So I just wanted to give a big ups to my people for raising awareness about a really important issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so let's get started with Keith Olbermann, actually. Later on in the hour, we are going to talk about the Bruce Jenner interview on ABC's 2020. It was an incredible interview, and we have details on that. But first, let's start off with Keith Olbermann, who actually did something that I admire.
Yeah.
All right? So, Keith Olbermann has called for a boycott of the NFL draft and also the Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather fight. And those are two events, sporting events, that of course are going to draw a lot of attention. People are already talking about the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight. So what's his big issue with this? Well, it turns out that he has problems with sexual assault and domestic violence. And of course, when it comes to the NFL, it has been dealing with a lot of issues involving either domestic violence or sexual assault. And Floyd Mayweather has been convicted of some pretty terrible things in the past. So here's what Keith Olbermann had to say about this. The choices are about where we as sports fans, where we as human beings draw the line about domestic violence in this country. I will not promote, watch, nor report on Mayweather's fight. I will boycott it, and I urge you to as well. He also says that when you discover there are no other adults in the room, that the commissioners and the boxing organizations and the leagues are the money-hungry children, then by process of elimination, you have to become the adult. And we, the reluctant adults, we have to draw a line. Now, I want to be a little specific about the people that he was referring to. So Floyd Mayweather has been convicted of several charges in the past. In fact, sexual assault against women, domestic violence, and so, you know, that's 5 convictions in the last 14 years for the assault against women.
Ridiculous.
So that's pretty serious. And also, Jameis Wilson is expected to be drafted into the NFL, and he has a shady past, to say the least. He was accused of sexually assaulting one of his female classmates. The case was dropped, and usually when a case is dropped, you just say, all right, well, there wasn't enough evidence to convict him, except the New York Times did this extensive investigation into the Tallahassee Police Department's investigation into the matter, and they found the following. They did not get a DNA sample from the victim, okay? They never interviewed Jameis about what occurred. Okay, the Tallahassee Police Department didn't even interview him. They never even obtained or tried to obtain a video of what happened from one of his friends. Apparently his friend filmed it, but the cops never asked for the video. Now, the New York Times said that the victim in this case had bruises on her knees and that she had, evidence of semen on her. But again, the Tallahassee Police Department did not obtain the DNA samples. So Keith Olbermann in this case is absolutely right. There are some ethical concerns, to say the least.
Oh, a lot of ethical concerns. It really gets under my skin, the fact that we don't stand with women and survivors like we should be, and that's why this happens over and over again. I actually saw some statistics which actually blew my mind because I didn't know this. It said 20% of college football recruits in the top 20 to 25 division have criminal records, and 1 of 3 of those athletes do some type of sexual assault or something while they're in college. So you know these men are doing this in college, and then you give them power and money and say, let's go into these fields, and then we're surprised when this is still happening when they're these big athletes.
Yeah.
And so what Keith is saying is, right, we need to shut this down, but unfortunately, those who have money are never going to allow that to happen.
That's a great point. And oftentimes when we talk about our justice system and how corrupt it is, we talk about how there's a two-tier justice system. Yeah. If you come from a certain socioeconomic status, you get different treatment. You can also afford different things, different resources to help you fight any case. But when it comes to the world of sports, the two-tier justice system has a lot to do with talent. If you're a talented athlete, there are people that are going to look out for you.
Exactly.
Now, in the case of Jameis Winston, I did a little more digging, and I found out that the police chief in that case for the Tallahassee Police Department had very, very close ties to the university that Jameis was playing at. So he has a vested interest to not actually pursue a real investigation. That's problematic to say the least. So this is something that I'm really happy that someone like Keith Olbermann is raising awareness to. I've had my issues with him in the past. But it's brave of him as a sports fan and a sports reporter to say something like this on a platform for sports fanatics.
Yeah, definitely. I can speak to the Tallahassee police because I actually attended Florida A&M University. And I remember there was a young lady who, during my freshman year, said that she had been raped. And by one of the guys in the frat. And when she went to the police were like, well, he's in my frat. I don't believe this happened. I know what goes on here. And so the police department did nothing about her rape. And I think eventually, she just kind of like got intimidated and didn't say anything, which was really sad to me. And so what I would really love to see is maybe in this instance, the survivors starting to speak up a lot more, and those who support the survivors to encourage them to speak up, because of course we know nothing's going to happen. The draft is going to happen. The fight's going to happen. But maybe if these survivors spoke up more and those who are in line with the survivors, maybe we can start seeing some change. Maybe have them say what they believe should happen to these men. Maybe something can happen.
Yeah, now more than ever, it's important for people to encourage survivors to come forward with their stories. And it's ultimately up to the survivors as to whether or not they want to press charges or go public with their story. But we live in this weird age where if you are someone who's been a victim of sexual assault or rape, people are skeptical and people will question you. And it's a really uncomfortable environment to be in. And so I think you're absolutely right about that. One other point I want to make, out of all sporting events, I actually really enjoy boxing.
Same.
So I was planning on watching the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight just because it's going to be epic, and Keith Olbermann convinced me otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's pretty good.
A lot of credit to him for doing that. All right, moving right along. The PEN Awards are going to happen next month. In fact, the PEN American Gala is happening next month, and Charlie Hebdo is set to win an award, the Freedom of Expression Courage Award. Now, there are a number of writers, 6 writers in particular, that are actually very upset about this. They believe that Charlie Hebdo should not receive that award because of some of the offensive covers that they've had in the past, covers that make fun of those who they feel are disenfranchised, Muslim religion particularly. So let me give you an example of what they said. In a letter sent earlier Sunday to PEN trustees, current PEN American President Andrew Solomon acknowledged that several people were offended by some of Charlie Hebdo's cartoons, but added that PEN believed strongly in the appropriateness of the award. Now, one of those writers is a woman by the name of Francine Prose, and she spoke to the Associated Press about this. She said, I was quite upset as soon as I heard about the award. I couldn't imagine being in the audience when they have a standing ovation for Charlie Hebdo. So she feels very strongly about this. So I want you to jump in, because I'm really curious to see what you think. I mean, to say that the images or the cartoons in Charlie Hebdo were offensive is not that far-fetched.
Yeah. Completely. So I'm conflicted because part of me, as the job that we do, of course, it's our job to report, and we have First Amendment that supports us, that we freedom of speech, but there's a cultural sensitivity that needs to be there. And so I put myself in this spot as if I was a Muslim and I was watching this and I saw this on the cover, or even if they put a black man or a white man in blackface on the cover, how would I feel about the person who put that on the cover getting an award? And that really is what got me, because of course, she's right in what she's saying about why he should get this award, but it's hard because you have to think about those who are going to be hurt. And so there's a fine line. But what I don't agree with is her protesting and not going.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe there's any benefit in being outside of the room. If you want to create change, you need to be inside of the room. When she said, I could not imagine myself not standing is more important than there being an empty seat.
Yeah.
Because an empty seat just sees somebody didn't show up. But when you see that I've taken a stance and a protest within here while you're getting your award, maybe you might encourage others to do the same, and then this person knows, wow, I need to be a little bit more culturally sensitive next time.
Yeah, that's a really great point. For me, I think they should win the award, regardless of how offensive they are. Even if they had covers that made fun of Armenian girls living in LA called Anna, right? Like, it would offend me, I would hate it, but I feel so strongly about the freedom of expression that even if you're saying something that I disagree with 100%, I don't want the government or anyone coming in and telling you, no, you're not allowed to publish something like that.
You're right.
So, yeah, regardless of how offensive it might be, it's important to have that freedom of expression. Now, Andrew Solomon, who is the president of Penn, says the following: "We believe that Charlie Hebdo's intent was not to ostracize or insult Muslims, but rather to reject forcefully the efforts of a small minority to place broad categories of speech off limits, no matter the purpose, intent, or import of the expression." So what he's saying there is absolutely right. Charlie Hebdo was punished mercilessly for their belief in freedom of expression. And some of the things that they put out there, even if they were offensive, they were, they were courageous. And I don't really have a problem with them winning that award. But I will say, I also don't have a problem with the writers voicing their concern over the content in Charlie Hebdo.
Of course, yeah, definitely. Everyone should be able to speak up. It's just that and that's why I say I'm conflicted, because I wonder, when do we go too far?
Yeah.
At what point do we go too far? Like, if someone puts a little girl on a magazine cover getting raped, is that freedom of expression? And it sort of gets me at that point where I'm like, I don't know. And of course, that's a far off, example. But it just is one of those things why I am personally conflicted.
Right. And the thing is, freedom of expression, of course, has its limitations.
Yeah.
So, we have in the United States, I know that's different from France, but in the United States, we have certain restrictions to freedom of speech, obscenity laws. We have, rules that indicate that you can't walk into a crowded theater and yell fire. That's always the example that they give. So yeah, there are limitations to freedom of expression, but in this case, I think that their freedom of expression was justified. So let me give you a few examples of some of the offensive covers that they put out there. Usually they would just have images of the Prophet Muhammad, and that is strictly forbidden in Islam.
Yeah.
So that was what, enraged some of the extremists and led to the terrible shooting that occurred earlier this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that last one.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad one. All right, let's take a really quick break. When we come back, we have the Bruce Jenner story for you guys, and also an update to what's happening in for-profit colleges in the United States, my favorite story of the day. Welcome back to the Young Turks. Anna and Karamo Brown here with you. So I wanted to read some TYT lives, and before I get to specific ones, I just wanted to give a lot of love to people who are welcoming me back. You guys are super sweet. It's nice to be wanted, right? Yeah. So, bitchy gay guy, you're the best. I have a lot of love for you. All right, so Jamel says, with regards to Mayweather, so he got convicted. If you want more punishment, wouldn't the beef be with the justice system? So yeah, the beef is with the justice system for sure. But if you object to something that he's done in the past, I think that it's totally okay to boycott his fight.
Completely.
Yeah. Emma says, serious question, why isn't gender violence and inequality on par with racial violence and inequality? I think in both cases, the public is not taking it as seriously as it should be.
Of course not.
I know that we've been talking about racial tension a lot on the show because of the police brutality, but we've also been talking a lot about, sexual assault and rape, especially within, the NFL and how nothing's being done about it. And the stories just make me realize more and more that when there's money involved, people don't take it seriously.
Completely. And also, not to play the card, it's white male privilege and what that plays into. Do you really want to talk about issues affecting minorities and women? Because historically in our country, that has not been something that's important to white men. That's not true for all, so I don't want to generalize.
Right.
But that privilege for those who are in power plays into why those stories aren't heard.
Yeah, and every time we talk about white privilege, people misconstrue what we're trying to say.
Yes.
Again, white privilege means you get the benefit of the doubt.
Benefit of the doubt. That's it.
That's all it means.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have Ruth Iverson saying, sometimes TYT offends me or my peeps, and I still love TYT and don't want them to change. So I think that that's a really important mindset to have. I deal with people who disagree with me on a regular basis, and it's important to disagree with people because it gets you thinking. Maybe you'll think about a different perspective. The worst thing you can do is just try to shut down any type of content that disagrees with your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You know? All right. So there, and then Cynthia Sorensen says she loves my dress. Thanks, girl.
The dress is everything. The minute I walked in, I was like, work. I love it.
Power dress. All right. Let's move on to Bruce Jenner. Very important story of the day. Diane Sawyer of ABC's 2020 had an epic interview with Bruce Jenner, and he finally cleared up all the rumors regarding his identity. It turns out that he does identify as female, and he does identify as transgender. Now, prior to this interview happening, there were a number of tabloids that were spreading rumors about him, treating the story as if it was some sort of joke. So naturally, people were a little hesitant to have someone like Bruce Jenner be interviewed about such a serious topic. But I have to give it to ABC's 2020 and Diane Sawyer. They did an excellent job raising awareness about something that people should know about in the country. Now, we have two snippets of the interview for you that I want you to see. I highly suggest you go online and watch the whole thing. It was a great interview, and it really clears up some of the torture that he's gone through his entire life. Let's take a look at the first video.
Bruce, always telling a lie. He's lived a lie his whole life about who he is. And I can't do that any longer. So can I take my ponytail out? Yeah, why not, huh? We're talking about all this stuff. Yeah, let's take the damn ponytail out.
A symbolic moment after 65 years. In a sense, we start again. Are you a woman?
Yes, for all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
Now, he doesn't want to be referred to as she, which is why we will continue referring to him as he in the segment.
Well, actually, it was just for during the interview.
Mm-hmm.
So he said during the interview, it's he, and also for their family while they're still adjusting.
Okay.
But after the interview, it's she and.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay.
So she would be appropriate for this one.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know.
A lot of
that
people were
update.
confused on that, so you're not. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I actually went to a trans blog and was seeing and was like, oh yes, I did miss that. So.
Yeah. So Jenner hasn't specified what type of name she wants to use in the future, and so I don't know. So I'm just gonna keep using she and Jenner. Now, that was an incredible part of the interview for me personally, because you can see in his eyes just how hard it was to hide who she really was, right? It's a really difficult thing to do. She was married 3 times, at this point divorced 3 times, and Jenner's had a number of kids and lived this life as this athlete, this American hero, and now all of a sudden you have to come forward about something that the vast majority of Americans are ignorant about. That's not to put Americans down, it's just that there isn't a lot of education out there about the transgender community, and to have someone who's such a huge public figure come forward with this is so incredibly important.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw this, I actually got teary-eyed because I can just imagine the effect he's having in the South, or she's having in the South, the conversations that they're having in the Midwest, by seeing one of your heroes, the most masculine of men in the definition of how we define it, to win and be an Olympian, to now be able to say, I was being tormented by not being able to live my truth. And it took me 65 years to come to a point where I can now live my truth and have the support of my family around me, which was so amazing. Diane Sawyer did such an amazing job. Andy Cohen and I were tweeting each other that we were nervous of how she was going to handle this, and she handled it with grace.
She did such a great job. I mean, I was really concerned because when it comes to mainstream media, establishment media, and especially a big public figure like Diane Sawyer, usually there's like this obsession with asking a lot of questions and kind of interrupting, but she did a good job in just letting him speak and kind of tell his story. And I have a tremendous amount of love for his family because they support her, and I'm sorry, this is difficult.
No,
Obviously.
definitely. And let me
Yeah,
say
and I'm
something
not doing it to be disrespectful.
No, and let me speak up on that because a lot of people were getting real sensitive. I work in the LGBT community, obviously, as an activist, and trans people are not offended when you try to correct yourself. So I just want to make sure anyone out there who's hearing this story, want to talk about this story, if you're at a place where you're not sure what gender pronoun to use, you know, you can always say they. You can also say I apologize immediately, like you've done.
Yeah.
So I just think that's important to say because a lot of people are like, well, let me not speak about this because I don't want to mess up.
Right, and it's difficult not to mess up.
Yeah,
you know?
it's very difficult.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, so that was the first part of the interview I wanted to show you. Now, another part of the interview that I found fascinating was the fact that she still identifies as a Republican and a religious Republican at that. So, you know, for someone like me who's had to deal with a lot of stories involving conservative individuals disenfranchising and discriminating against those who are in the LGBT community, it was kind of difficult for me to hear that part of the interview. We have it for you. Take a quick look.
God's looking down, making little Bruce. Okay? He's looking down and he says, okay, what are we going to do with this one? Make him a smart kid, very determined. Down and gave me all these wonderful qualities. And then at the end, when he's just finishing, he goes, wait a second. We got to give him something. Everybody has stuff in their life that they have to deal with. You know, what are we going to give him? And God looks down and chuckles a little bit and goes, you know, hey, let's give him the soul of a female. And let's see how he deals with that.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. But that Republican thing, I really do think that's going to change immediately.
Yeah.
Just, and not to go back again to the white privilege, or harbor on that, I think that's the white male that he was perceiving to be, that was making him believe that, okay, I can be Republican, because once he starts to realize how many laws are against him, and laws that are changing to be against her, see, we all make mistakes, I think she'll immediately come to the realization that being a Republican and being an open transgender person, you're now going to be faced with ridicule, and I think that will quickly change. And
her political ideology. I think that's feasible, especially when you consider, you know, it's one thing to have one issue that you're passionate about and be against a political party because they don't agree with you on that issue, but this isn't just an issue, this is his identity. And when you have a political party that believes that your identity makes you strange or weird or abnormal, well, it's really hard to agree with them, even if you agree with their fiscal policy and everything else. Yeah. So I want to give her a lot of credit for coming forward with this. It's not easy to be in your 60s, in your mid-60s, and have all these children and ex-wives and come forward with something like this.
That's the biggest piece. That takes real bravery and courage to get to that place, that age where you're like, I can't do it anymore. And that shows how true and how much of a struggle it was for her to live with this demon, and finally was able to just live her truth. Because I'm like, to be 65, I don't know if I would have the courage at that point to just speak my truth. I'd be like, well, I've lived this long, no one else knows.
Especially when you're a public figure.
Especially when you're a public figure, which just goes to show for anybody out there who doesn't understand what it is to transition or to have issues with your gender identity. It's really something that's in your soul. It's not something you just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to choose to be someone else. There's deep-seated, this is who I am. And this is a great example of the strength it takes.
Definitely. Now, after Bruce Jenner had her interview with ABC's 2020, Perez Hilton decided to go after Kris Jenner because she hadn't released a statement after the interview aired. He tweeted, Kris Jenner is negotiating her very own tell-all interview as we speak to the highest bidder, or so I think. And then he also tweeted, Kris Jenner has no comment for ABC News and the Bruce Jenner interview. His other two ex-wives give supportive statements. And she actually responded to that and said, fuck you, Perez. No one asked me to comment, and I'm sitting with Bruce now watching this show, so let's keep it real. The LOL seems superfluous, but whatever, she included that. I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to defend Kris Jenner. She's not obligated to release a statement about this at all.
No.
I mean, what is up with people pressuring others to release statements about things? This is a very, very personal matter for her, right? And if Bruce Jenner wants to come forward and share her story, by all means, please do it. If Kris Jenner doesn't want to make a comment about it, you shouldn't be pressuring her to do it.
At all.
Right, and you shouldn't make an assumption that she doesn't support Jenner just because she's been silent about it.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, fuck you, Perez. Like,
Damn.
seriously, real talk. Because as a gay man talking to another gay man, how dare you not focus on the positive nature of this story? And you go to this salacious place where all of a sudden now you're saying, this is not right. She should have made a statement. Those are transphobic statements that cause pain and hurt. Like, you're telling someone who's dealing with something, this was her husband who had children with, and you want her to make some public statement or even to say that she's trying to get some money off of an interview. If she is, I don't care, but for you as a gay man, you should not be saying that. You should be supporting and saying, you know what, this is an important time in our community, and so we should be focusing. Every tweet Perez should have sent out should have been about how brave and amazing Bruce is, how amazing the family is to be sitting with him and standing with him or her at this time. I mean, there's so many different things that he could have been focused on other than the money.
That's such a great point.
F off, Perez.
And the thing is, Perez is looking for controversy, he's looking for drama, but in this case, be a little respectful of not only Jenner, but also her family. You know, in this case, be respectful of the family. I'm sure they're going through a difficult time, a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just
be respectful of your community.
Yeah.
That really blew my mind.
So
I mean, sometimes, you know, it's easy for us because I'm not a fan of the Kardashians. I've said this before. It's hard for me sometimes. You know, so it's easy that you want to pick at them.
Yeah.
But in this case, come on, like, you're a gay man. There's someone on television who's speaking their truth about being transgender, and you had the audacity to not focus on the importance of that and to sway this conversation to something ugly.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Well, overall, I'm really proud of Bruce Jenner. I'm proud of Diane Sawyer for the way she handled that interview. She sat back and allowed Jenner to tell his story, and hopefully this will be a teachable moment for Americans and the entire world. All right, let's move on to Russia, where things are starting to get a little ugly, or continue to be a little ugly, for those who have the audacity to have a little fun. 3 Russian women have been sentenced to jail in Russia after they were dancing, twerking to be specific, at a World War II memorial. In fact, they put a video up online that went viral, and then the authorities in Russia saw it and decided to prosecute. Let's take a quick look at the video in question. Alright, that was fun. I didn't see a lot of twerking in that video, I gotta be honest. I just love how everything is considered twerking.
Yeah, they just lump it all in.
Yeah, I know they're gyrating and everything, and maybe doing this at a World War II memorial or near a World War II memorial is distasteful, unsavory, but is it criminal? I would say no. But Russian authorities would say yes. So what are the charges that these women had to deal with? Hooliganism. And not all of them are women. Some of them were actually underage. So let me tell you, the 3 that did get jail time because of their hooliganism, which, by the way, sounds like the funnest thing to get convicted of, right? Like, if I were to ever get convicted of anything, I want it to be hooliganism. Yeah. Anyway, so Margarita Radishkaya apparently got sentenced to 15 days in jail. So this isn't a Pussy Riot type story where they got sentenced to 2 years in jail. The sentence was much shorter, but again, they should not have been sentenced to any jail time. Yana Kutakova got sentenced to 10 years, and Ekaterina Sherbenskaya, I'm doing my best,
You did great.
also got sentenced to 10 years. Now, 10 days, I'm sorry. 10 years would be ridiculous. 10 days is still ridiculous, though. Now, prosecutors in this part of Russia also said they were pressing charges against the parents of one underage girl who was twerking with the other girls for the failure to encourage the physical, intellectual, psychological, or is it physiological? Yeah, physiological, spiritual, and moral development of a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. This is modern misogyny at its best.
Yep.
You take these women who are fully clothed, are not really dancing or twerking, as they said, just having fun. It was to promote a dance school, and then you say, well, I'm offended by that. Let's lock these women up. I mean, I did not see one thing wrong with this. If these Russians ever came to America and turned on MTV, everyone would need to be in jail, because everyone.
Okay, so I think that they have a point about it being offensive to those who lost their lives in World War II.
I agree. It was distasteful to be in front of that monument.
Yes, they shouldn't have done that. But I don't. First of all, they weren't trying to make a political statement. I don't think that they really thought about this before they did it. And so for me, intent is important. And even aside from intent, let's say that they did intend to be offensive. I believe in freedom of expression. I don't think that they did anything that harms anyone. The big crime here was hurting someone's feelings. And also, let's keep it real. What they didn't like is the fact that these women were being sexual and they were dancing in a sexual way. They don't want that. Now, when you consider the fact that Russia has a serious issue with sexual harassment and sexual assault, I find it a little questionable that they're focusing all their attention on these young girls who are dancing, and they're refusing to shift their attention to the number of people who victimize men and women in Russia by
Thank you
sexually
so much for
assaulting
bringing
them.
that up, because that was a big thing for me. When I read this, I was thinking, do you know how many other cases you should be focusing on right now? And you're focusing on these women who are covered up. It's not even like they're on the monument twerking or anything. They're at a clear distance. And you're going to be focusing on this instead of the other issues, the sexual harassment, the victims, and I was like blown away by that.
I just feel like Russia is devolving when it comes to human rights and civil rights. And it's unfortunate, and it sucks to see it happening. Putin is a complete and utter disaster. I mean, look at what they've done with their anti-gay laws. Look at what they've done with, invading Ukraine and pretending like they're not sending, members of their military in there to annex entire portions out of the country. I mean, it's not a good situation. But something like this just makes you realize that they learned nothing from the Pussy Riot incident at all. In fact, they're just doubling down on their ridiculous ideology, hooliganism. All right, let's take one more quick break. When we come back, I'm going to read your TYT Lives, and also Christian bakers are blaming Satan for something. What is it? I'll fill you in on the details. guys, welcome back to the Young Turks. Final segment for you. I want to read some TYT lives. I'm actually surprised at the number of people who did not like the Bruce Jenner interview. So let me give you some tweets. Omi says, I can't take Jenner serious after he said he was a Republican hypocrite. Even though he's a Republican, he is raising awareness about something that people need to know about.
Yeah,
so you got to give him a little credit for that. And also, think about how brave that is.
Very brave.
Yeah.
And again, her views will change.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of money on that.
Yeah. So, also Chris Bradshaw says, I'm usually pro-sexy dancing, but I'm a little torn on this, referring to the story about Russia. Over 20 million Soviets died in World War II. The Russians have the right to be pissed. I agree. You have the right to be offended. But again, is it a criminal offense?
Yeah.
I mean, I
wonder if there was any signs posted that said you can't dance in this area or this area specifically for this, because that would actually help. That would have been a better solution than locking people up.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was underage. They're in their early 20s. Like the oldest one is in her early 20s.
Yeah.
So I don't think. And look, you're a grown woman at that point, but I don't think that they had bad intent. Again, they were just trying to shoot a promotional video for their dance school. They didn't really think about it. A lot of young people are kind of out of touch when it comes to historical events. So I guess I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. All right, and then there was one other. Oh yeah, so Chris Bradshaw had another really funny tweet. The real story here is a member of the Kardashian clan is finally relevant. That's really funny.
Good job. I like that one.
I like that too. All right, let's see if we can fit in some few more stories. 2 Christian bakers in Oregon were fined a whopping $135,000 after they refused to bake a wedding cake for a lesbian couple. Now, Oregon has some pretty strict anti-discrimination laws, and as a result, this business did suffer a fine, which I think is a little excessive. Now, Aaron and Melissa Klein needed money. They needed to raise money in order to pay this huge fine. And so they did what most people would probably do. They went to crowdfunding websites and they chose GoFundMe. Now, apparently their GoFundMe page was very successful. Let me give you the details. In just 4 hours, the campaign raised approximately $20,000. Within a day, as the total climbed to nearly $110,000, GoFundMe canceled it, saying that the fundraiser violated Oregon law and was therefore in violation of the website's terms and conditions. Now, Oregon's laws are obviously very different from Indiana's laws. We did that story about Memories Pizza in Indiana and how they said that they would discriminate against gay couples or they wouldn't serve them. And they raised nearly $1 million on GoFundMe, and they will be able to cash out and take that money. But in this case, it's a little different because Oregon has different laws. I think that law is ridiculous. I think they should be able to raise the money. I don't like this business. I don't like their views. I'm very much in support of the gay community, and I think that there should be laws that prevent any type of discrimination against those members of the LGBT community. But in this case, if people want to donate money to them, they should be able to.
Yeah. Actually, surprisingly, I didn't have that bit of an issue with them raising the money either.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, okay. I kind of thought to myself, I might want to go start a GoFundMe page myself and then collect all this money under the pretense of hating gays and then spend it to support my community. I was like, why not? Like, I'll take your money and then spend it somewhere else. I mean, but I think the bigger picture here is the fact that so many people's rights are under attack in the LGBT community, and that's sort of where when I read this, was like, we have these nut jobs that are against LGBT people, against blacks, against Latinos, against women, against all these different individuals, but it's about making sure that those communities that are under attack are really informed and aware of how much they're being under attack.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, and as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking about how lame it would be if you lived in a society where everyone is exactly like you. Like if I lived in a city or a state or a country that was just pure Armenian, right? No one else is different. Everyone speaks the same language. We eat the same food. We have the same customs. We have the same sexuality. I know that not all Armenians have the same sexuality. You get what I mean. But everyone is the same, right? How lame is that? I mean, part of living and learning involves people that have different perspectives than you, different backgrounds from you. Instead of opening yourself up to people who are different from you, why shut them down? And I know that they like to cite religious texts, But when you're doing that, do you understand that there are so many conflicts within your own religion?
Yeah.
You're supposed to love people, right? Yet you decide that you want to discriminate against them because they don't agree with your religious beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, the religious right, they're trying to put discrimination back into the law books, and it's horrible. If you don't mind, if I could read something that was very important to me. In 2015, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Indiana moved bills through their state legislators that would either ban anti-discrimination laws from protecting LGBT people and will legalize the so-called religious freedom exemption. And last year, Tennessee, Arizona, Mississippi, and Maine and Idaho also attempted to pass legislation removing protection for LGBT people. And in Kansas this February, Governor Sam rescinded the protections for LGBT state employees. And I just really want to use this story more to like wake up, first of all, LGBT people to understand that this is happening and you need to do something, but also wake up our allies like you. You're very informed. You do a lot for our community, and I think all other allies need to know that if you're seeing something or if you're aware of this, you can support and help, because by bringing these anti-discrimination laws back into effect, it starts with maybe LGBT people, but then it goes to African Americans, Latinos, it goes to Armenians, it goes to everyone, and then it's a slippery slope. And so if you're an ally of the LGBT community, speak up. If you're a member of the community, you need to also know what's happening.
Absolutely. And
thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah, of course. That's a really important point to make.
Yeah.
And just consider the fact that 32 states right now have no protections for transgender individuals in terms of employment. So if you're working somewhere and a business finds out that you are transgender, they can fire you with absolutely no consequences.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of what's happening in the country. And that's just one group of people that are being disenfranchised in the country. And that's a big problem. Now, let me also tell you the other half of this story. Apparently, even though GoFundMe canceled this page, the couple will be able to collect the $110,000 that was raised for them. So I think that that's a fascinating little loophole, because if Oregon law states that they can't raise money like this to pay their fine, how is it okay for GoFundMe to let them cash out that $110,000? I don't know. I looked into it and I couldn't really figure it out. But nonetheless, they are getting a tremendous amount of help to pay that fine. And then really quickly, do you think the fine's a little excessive?
I didn't give it a lot of attention, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I was like, the part of them, I was like, I've had people not want to serve me for being black, for being gay, for being whatever. So I'm used to that, and I didn't see the fine. How much was it?
$135,000.
That is a little bit excessive.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think that they're like rolling in the big bucks.
They're not rolling in the big bucks. And I mean, hurting this one business, unfortunately, is not going to create the change.
That's a really great point.
It's not. You know what I mean? It's a great start, I understand, so I don't want to take it away, but there needs to be more work done on a bigger level.
Yeah. All right, guys. Unfortunately, we have to leave it at that. We are out of time, so we're going to go ahead and call it a night. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. For our members, there will be a post-game show. Jake will be back on Friday. So if those of you who are wondering where he is, he will be back Friday. I can't believe he's still gone. Like, I went on vacation, I came back, he's still gone. But he'll be back soon. Karamo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Will you join us for the members only?
Yes, of course.
I like that I did that on air.
I know,
Put on the pressure. All right. Well, we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good one. And that's it.